together and to be encouraged with one another. But as you may know, our sermon series is called Digital Discipleship that we're going through. But today I'm going to be talking about service. Can you hear me? Okay. I'm so used to talking into my AirPods that I can be so quiet. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about service and what it means to serve in your individual life, to the people around you, to your friends, to your family, to strangers, but also what it's like to serve in the church. So right now we kind of live in such a digital culture, right? It's so self-centered. We're very much, what do? I'm in my space. What do I need to do? What's my schedule? Things like that. But that doesn't mean that any of the typical service opportunities are any less prevalent, right? We're not running into opportunities like holding the door for people outside as much. We're not seeing as many mission opportunities. We aren't, covering someone's bill at the store. We see them struggling. We may not be helping people with projects in class. There's no welcoming team at church, we're not going on as many community service, but that doesn't mean any of these are any less important or that people's needs aren't, there aren't needs to be met. And I think it's important that as we're kind of stuck in our room, stuck in our individual, flow of the day, that we remember that at the heart of Jesus is to really serve other people and not to get stuck in our own ways. I know for me in quarantine, it was easy for me to kind of get stuck in what I was going through and get stuck, family stuff's going on, emotional stuff's going on. And I think all of us have kind of experienced that to an extent, right? You're trying to deal with what you're going through. And we kind of forget that there's other people that also could really use some encouragement, could really use connection. And so I just think it's really imperative that we continue to fix our eyes on Jesus, to really figure out how to live a life of service to God. So some examples that I wanted to share, just for examples of things that are in the Bible that we may forget. In the Bible it says to honor your father and mother, but how many times do we forget to serve our father and mother when we lash out at them or argue with them or disrespect them? Helping someone else out financially. We're students, we don't have a ton of money, but when could you just lend $1 to someone? What about helping someone with their schoolwork? Oftentimes we get so focused on, I need to finish my stuff first, but Jesus always put other people first. What would that look like for us? Or, time spent catching up with people. What would it mean to someone just for you to reach out and catch up and see how they're doing? So if we look to the world, it really says serve yourself first, right? Do what you need to do, get your stuff done, and then maybe help someone else after that. Do community service to put it on your resume. Step into a leadership position just to show that you're accountable or that you have drive for employers. Join a team so you can make friends. But Jesus shows us humble service without any agenda. So often when we serve, we can still have a selfish ambition when we're trying to serve people, right? It can still be about us. It can be to make us look good, to fulfill us, to get benefits for ourselves. But Jesus really shows us that there's no agenda except to serve other people. So I wanted to read from Mark 10, verses 41 to 45. So this says, so Jesus is his disciples come up to him and they want to sit at the right and left hand of him, to be in points of authority. And it says, when the disciples heard about this, they became frustrated with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be the slave of all. For even the Son of Man, literally the Son of the Creator of the universe, came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." And I think that's so powerful, right? Because the disciples, they're hanging out with Jesus, seeing all that he could do, and they were having an impact on people. And they were like, we want to sit next to you, we want to have authority, we want to be at the right hand of you to rule over people. But he said, I didn't come to be served. Jesus is that ultimate power, and he didn't even want to be served. So what do you have to say? You want to be served. You want to be served. And this, I feel like, so common in our society now is like pyramid schemes, right? You bring people underneath you so you can be lifted up. They bring people underneath them so you can be lifted up even more, right? It just keeps going so that we can get to ultimate success, ultimate fame, security, things like that. But as Christ followers, our identity and greatness comes from him, right? Our value is from him. And without him, we're nothing. And that's for anyone we serve as well, right? Their value rests in Jesus. And so we never get to be above them, right? We're all the same. The people we're serving are just as valuable from Jesus as we are. And so it's just ultimately a way to glorify and worship God when we serve. So I'm going to read another verse because the Bible is the best way to figure out what God is telling us to do, and how we can serve with his heart, is Matthew 25, starting at verse 31. Okay, so this chapter is called The Sheep and the Goats. It says, when the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people from one another as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He'll put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, come, you who are blessed by my Father. Take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. So he's telling them, you've earned your inheritance, right? And he says this because when he was hungry, he says, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me, and I was in prison and you came to visit me. Then the righteous, the other people, they were saying, Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you? Or when did we see you thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, needing clothes to clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and going to visit you? The king replied, truly I will tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters, you did for me. And basically that story just shows us, right, that it doesn't have to be Jesus sitting in front of us. How would you serve someone if that was Jesus sitting in front of you? Instead, Jesus is saying, when you serve the least of these, any person, you're serving him, right? And the whole heart behind that is because we were the least of these, right? Jesus came to save us. We were dead in our sin. You know, we were being so selfish. Even today, right? We get stuck in our sin, in ourselves, in our selfishness, and Jesus comes and saves us every day. So we deserve to reflect that to other people too. So service is truly the love of Jesus in action. So I want to encourage you guys to let Jesus be your motivator, right? Don't just serve people because you want to come off as a good person, or you want to make more friends, or you want to get some sort of status, but really because Jesus fills us up, right? If we go to Jesus to be filled, then we can pour that out onto other people. And just a verse, in case you need some encouragement, that is Jeremiah 17, 7 through 8. I'm not going to read it, but that's the verse. And it's not only important to serve individually in our own lives with people close to us, that's really important, but it's also important to serve in the church, right? So the purpose of church is to invite other people in, to encourage one another, and to promote unity among one another, and also to develop more disciples so that we can continue to share the good word. I know for me, serving in church, both like at Freedom Church or in ENC, I've been really encouraged by people I've been serving with. People have served me even while I've been serving, encouraging me and seeing what they see God has planted inside of me as I serve, or even, just reminding me on what our purpose is, encouraging one another and just keeping each other on track, that we're, living for Jesus. We're here to serve people, not to serve ourselves. And it's important because we're all members of the same body, right? There's a verse in Exodus 31 that talks about when Moses and his people were building the tabernacle, and he specifically calls out specific names and specific jobs. For example, he says, see, I have chosen Bezalel, son of Uri, son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah. I filled him with the Spirit of God, with wisdom, with understanding, with knowledge, and all kinds of skills, to make artistic designs for work in gold, silver, and bronze, to cut and set stones, to work in wood, and to engage in all kinds of crafts. And he goes on to list a bunch of people that he specifically called to do specific works in building the tabernacle. And I think that's such a cool analogy to how we build the church now, right? We all have different gifts, we all have different talents that God's placed in us to worship him and to serve people around us. And there's really a place for everyone, right? Everyone has some sort of gift that they can bring to the table to help encourage and build the church. And like it was said in the verses, he says Bezalel is empowered by the Spirit of God. And that's inside of all of us too, right? That's what empowers us to continue serving, what motivates us to serve. And I just wanted to say also, it's a great way to practice our love attributes. We all know that verse, love is patient, love is kind, love is not self-seeking, keeps no record of wrongs. Us serving together as a team also allows us to practice patience, kindness, gentleness, and things like that. So serving is not only, there are benefits for us, but that's ultimately not the purpose. Serving, it's important for us to continue to seek out service, to really be the heart of God for the world. As we serve individually in our own lives to the people around us and at church, we get to be a great example of Jesus' love for the world. And so that's ultimately our our purpose here, right? Is to show people the love of Jesus, and service is a great way to do that. To put ourselves last and put someone else first. And hopefully for God to provide opportunities for us to explain that to someone. To explain why I value you, why I put you first over myself. So I just want to encourage you that true disciples, we look for opportunities to serve. So I would like to pray us out and encourage you guys